The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
Hello there. Obi-Wan Kenobi here, also known as James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan, Jedi Master Plo Koon, and many other characters in the world of Star Wars. You're listening to... Shh, don't tell. It's The Secrets of Star Wars. May the Force be with you.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, from movies to books, TV shows, and more. We're looking at the deeper themes and meanings found in the Star Wars universe, and on this episode, we'll be discussing Star Wars video gaming. Be sure to follow The Secrets of Star Wars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app, or on the StarQuest YouTube channel. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, on X, where we are at SQPN, or on Instagram, where we are at StarQuest Network. And be sure to get your official Secrets of Star Wars gear at sqpn.com/merch. I'm your host, Patrick Mason, and joining me tonight on the panel is Father Andrew. Hi, Father Andrew.
Hey. I will throw out there that I am back on the podcast officially. This is Father Fett for those of you listeners who maybe have missed me for the last couple years. And not to... Yay! You're back! Yay! I think I was on one of the Life Day specials in the last year, but unfortunately I wasn't able to do much because I was off getting my canon law degree in Washington, D.C. So I am back in Wyoming now, full-time pastor of 2 parishes, also starting work in the tribunal. So I may not be host for Secrets of Star Wars as much as I used to, but I am still back on the rotation as I can fit it in my schedule. So it's a joy to be back on with you guys.
It's wonderful that you're back. Yeah, we're very happy. Although I'm going to have to watch what I say to make sure I don't break canon law on accident.
Oh, no. Especially on this episode, we'll have some canon law infractions if you say certain video games are bad. So I'm just saying.
Thankfully, I don't think canon law says anything about video games. That's all just a morality thing or potential or not canon law related. So I think we're okay.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. And we are also joined, as you've already heard, by Ryan Nafziger. Did I say that right? Okay. Did. Ryan Nafziger, also known as the Pod Racer.
Yes. We'll get into lore about why that is here in just a bit.
Oh, good. Awesome. All right. So a little background. There have been over 100 video games based on the Star Wars franchise, and they've been released since A New Hope hit theaters dating back to some of the earliest home consoles. We're talking like stuff that most of us probably never played, but some are based directly on the films, while others rely heavily on the Star Wars, what used to be called Expanded Universe, what is sadly called Legends now. And Star Wars games have gone through 3 significant development eras. The first games were early licensed games spanning time from 1979 until 1993. And then Lucas decided the video game thing was pretty lucrative, so they formed LucasArts, and they started game development. They shifted it in-house, and LucasArts made a number of non-Star Wars related games, as well as became a significant player in the video game industry, especially with the Star Wars franchise. It was shuttered at, much like the rest of the expanded universe, after the 2013 Disney acquisition to the rights for Star Wars. And since then, the rights have been transferred to Electronic Arts, and we've entered the EA era for Star Wars games, which could be seen as good or bad, depending on your opinion of EA. And if you have played a lot of video games, you probably have an opinion, since they're like the giant octopus that's entangled in everything.
Correct.
So with the history out there, let's get to the fun stuff and talk about the games themselves. We will definitely not be covering all 100 games. And for now, we're going to focus on...
I've played all of them. No, just kidding.
I have doubts, Ryan.
You don't doubt that I have some archaic computer collection that allows me to play all of them since 1979.
We call your bluff. 3 months later, send me
jokes on you. I have a computer from 1980.
Okay, well, so that's good. So let's start with establishing our gaming cred, because it's important and it makes our opinions valid and true. So we'll start with you, Ryan, since you got a computer from the 80s.
Oh no!
What's your gaming history?
Oh gosh, my gaming history. Okay, so my first game is actually a Star Wars game, so that kind of immediately boosts my creds. So I've been playing games since I first got a Nintendo 64 when I booted up Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer and started to play and had no idea what I was doing because a lot of the audio descriptive effects were alien languages, so I'm like, I don't understand what I'm doing. The bars are moving though, so I'm making a pod racer and it's fun. Since then, I've devoted far too much time to playing video games, though I have gotten a little bit better or worse, depending on your the view of how much time should be spent playing video games. That I have enjoyed a wide gamut of video games, from PC to various consoles, to, I guess... when it comes to video games, I guess it's just PC or consoles. I don't do any VR video games. Let's see, there's only a few Star Wars VR games.
But we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get together. Anyways, I'm establishing my credentials. There you go. I'm also establishing my credentials as a Star Wars video gamer as well. So there you go.
Good deal. What about you, Father Fett? What's your background?
So I had one of those moments, like when you see on social media, like, you're old when. I just had one of those moments, Ryan, when you popped up and said, when I bought my first Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
Ooh, oh no.
Yeah.
So immediately, like, my gaming history goes before the Nintendo 64. It starts off with this guy, and I'm showing.
Oh, I have one of those.
My co-host. This is my original Game Boy. So back in the early 90s. I mean,
the brick one, the big one.
The old,
clobber somebody with that if you want to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna break apart, so I'm not going to hit anybody with it. So my gaming history starts back then, but I didn't start off with Star Wars. We started off with Tetris. And back in those days, you could actually connect a cable between two Game Boys and play each other. And Mario and Luigi would pop into the game and be kind of your mascot. It was great fun. So that and then PC. So we got a Windows 95 PC, and actually it's here in my home office. You can see the monitor off to my left here. It still runs. It's a flat screen monitor, but it uses the old hookup, so I can hook it up to the Windows 95 PC. But the Windows 95 PC had DOS, and it had all those old 90s games. So I'll get into that in a little bit more. So I did quite a lot of PC games with Star Wars, but also definitely the consoles. I mean, I ran through the whole Nintendo. I did not own original Nintendo. I started with Game Boy, and then Super Nintendo, and then Nintendo 64, and all the way up through the current Nintendo Switch. And then I have also dabbled. I was into PlayStation when the PlayStation 1 and 2 came out, and then I quit. And I've also been into some of the Xbox games, because a lot of Star Wars games came out for Xbox, so it was sort of a necessity that I buy an Xbox. So I have kept up with them to the modern consoles for all of them. So I don't do PC gaming anymore, really, because a lot of it's console. So. So that's my history.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I started on the original Nintendo system with Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
Not Super Mario Brothers, which is a vast improvement over Mario Brothers. And just jumping around, hitting the POW box and knocking weird crab creatures into Luigi. So I've been playing video games for a long time. We were not we were a non-denominational family. We had a Nintendo, and then we had a Sega Genesis, and then we had a PlayStation original. And that's around that time I also got into computer gaming. So I was kind of, I sort of got into all of it, played all of it. As I got older, I did more and more computer gaming, less like first person stuff and more strategy or tactical kind of games. That's kind of what I love to do now, is tactics style games.
We're going to have a good conversation in that case. That's going to be great.
And I loved flight simulators. That was probably my real entrance into the Star Wars franchise, was through those. Played in arcades a lot. And nowadays we've got hooked up to the main TV downstairs. I have a Wii, a Wii U, and 2 or 3 Switches at any given moment, as well as a PS3. And so we're a fairly heavily gaming family. And I still occasionally will find a game that comes out on a PC that I'm like, oh, I have to play that. So it's been a long journey. And I think, like Ryan said, I've had to reorganize my time to correctly balance.
Yeah.
Thankfully, this is one of those things where, like, thankfully it's not a bad thing at all. It's just a matter of prudently allotting time for the hobby.
Yeah. So it does make me sad that I can't, like, my MMO days are long behind me, but it does make me sad that I can no longer log into what is it called? That one, Star Wars MMO. It's like the one what's it called? Star Wars: The Old Republic. Yeah,
the Old Republic.
Yeah, the Old Republic. I no longer can log into that and drop like 4 hours on some like event in game or something like that. That's no longer a possibility for me. If I want to maintain a balanced life.
Yeah, I was sad when that went away as an option. I have to admit.
Yep. The end of an era. The end of an era.
I was freshman in college and stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning just playing games.
Yep.
But so okay, all right. So it sounds like we're all fairly solid gamers here. So I'm gonna query you guys. What was your first Star Wars game?
I want to hear everyone else's first.
First. So I kind of alluded to it, but my first Star Wars game was on the Windows 95 machine on DOS, and it was Star Wars Dark Forces.
Okay.
And that game, if you want to play it, it was just remastered for sure Xbox Series X. I'm assuming for the PlayStation 5 as well. I'm not sure, but look up Dark Forces. It's this great. It was back in the days when first person
Doom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's sick.
Wing Commander and
okay.
First person shooter.
That's awesome.
And the Doom kind of style. And what was great about it is that game introduced you to Kyle Katarn, who shows up in a number of other games, who also shows up in a ton of the expanded universe books, and who's just a great, cool character. He becomes a Jedi and all of that. But this is before he's a Jedi, so he's just got the guns and the game is set prior to Episode 4, and then it goes after it plays before Episode 4 and then into and beyond Episode 4. But it before Rogue One existed, this game told how the Death Star plans were stolen. So Kyle Katarn did it instead of Jin and the team from Rogue One. So just a really fun game, and it introduced. That's the other thing that's really cool about it. It introduced the Dark Troopers that were that the Mandalorian took from Dark Forces and put them into the Mandalorian TV show. So that's where the that's where the Dark Troopers had their origins in the expanded universe Legends world. So totally a fun game. I remember, just sitting kind of on that old computer and playing through it. And before I really even kind of understood how even to play through these kind of games, it was more trial and error, and you'd get a key card, but I never remembered where the key cards would get you, what doors they unlocked. As an adult, you kind of you got it all mapped out. Like, you got to get this to open up that door. And, at whatever, 10 years old, it was just, I was just trying everything and but enjoying the game and enjoyed the plot as well.
Awesome. So, Ryan, you want me to go next, or do you want to go?
Oh yeah, I'm curious because I want to see if I am the youngin, as in my first Star Wars game is in fact the youngest, the most recent.
Yeah. So my first one that I remember is X-Wing. Is the
same era then as Dark Forces.
Yes. I was really into space fighter simulation.
Yeah.
At that time, I played through Wing Commander, and saw, there's a Star Wars one now, and I picked up X-Wing, and I fell absolutely in love with X-Wing. I would spend hours just running missions over and over again to see if I could do it better, to see if there was a better way to approach this capital ship, so I could drop the proton torpedoes without getting, only losing half my shield, so then I could go take out some TIE fighter. How many extra points could I get on this? And I've always loved space sims, and that was a really well done one. It was just on the side of realistic that it felt like you had skin in the game, and just on the side of unrealistic that it didn't feel impossible.
Okay.
Because that was always a fine line the space simulators were running. You either went, most of them either went too far on one side where you felt like you were utterly invincible in the spaceship, or too far on the other side which is probably closer to reality, which is no, you're a tiny speck of dust in an uncaring universe.
Yeah.
But yeah, X-Wing, probably my first, I think it was my first. There's a potential that I ran across some of the Star Wars arcade games first, but I don't have real clear, those weren't enough for me to really remember them. But X-Wing is there.
It's funny that you have that one as your first pick, because I know once I got into Dark Forces, I started to look for every game that I could and came across TIE Fighter. And I am not a fan of the flight simulator. My dad loved the flight simulator games, but I like the more adventure, feet on the ground, even third person or first person kind of games. So I tried TIE Fighter and just couldn't quite get into it.
Yeah. Well, TIE Fighter suffers from a little too realistic part, and partly because when you're in the TIE Fighter, you don't have shields. And so you die a lot in that game before you figure out what you're doing.
Well, in some of those old games, that was just they were built, I would almost say, because of just even technological limitations. They were just harder in general. And sometimes the frustrating factor of just if I'm going to keep dying all the time because I can't figure out the stupid game, I'm not going to play it. But I think that I appreciate the difficulty now looking back on some of those old games.
Yeah. So I'll drop my first two Star Wars video games because they both came out at around the same time. I am the youngin', by the way, so this is actually very fitting in its own way. So my first, like I said, so my first Star Wars video game was Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer for the Nintendo 64 circa. It technically came out in 1999, and I did not get it in 1999 because I was not a year to this world. But I started playing it, in around 2006, 2007. And then my other first Star Wars game, which I still play to this day, is Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, the real-time strategy game, the isometric like the isometric view real-time strategy game. It feels like you're playing StarCraft, older forms of like StarCraft era games and Warcraft in a way. But yeah, so those are my two. And I started playing Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds because so our home computer at home, my dad would always play that game and Star Wars Empire at War when we had gone to bed as kids. So sometimes when I opened up the door to my room, I would walk out and see my dad playing a video game, and I'd just walk over and climb up into his lap and watch him play Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds. And I very quickly realized that he wasn't that very good.
oh man! Does he listen to this podcast?
No, he doesn't.
Are you gonna get in trouble?
So when I got my hands on the game, I quickly surpassed him in skill. I was like 8 years old at the time, so but anyways, so I've loved the Star Wars real-time strategy games. There are very few of them that exist. But I've got mods for them. I play them with friends over like what's it called? Via like Voobly, so like an online hosting service for like older games, like older Age of Empires and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's a fun game, and that's certainly the one that I remember the most. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer is a little bit of a jank fest of a game, but it's my first, so I remember it fondly.
In that game,
it's basically on
different planets and different courses.
Yeah, you're racing around pod racers.
Okay,
yeah, so it's a racing game. Yeah,
but for Star Wars. And
no power ups.
Yeah. No power ups, but I mean, you can use Anakin's racers, Sebulba's, and I think like you can unlock pod racers as you go along as well.
Okay.
Yeah. It was because the pod racing scene as a kid was my favorite, because my dad is a big like audio nerd. So he has a very expansive home sound system. And whenever we would have to move it, or he would get like a new piece of equipment and have to calibrate the whole thing, he would just turn on this pod racer scene on loop. Because when you're testing surround sound, the pod racers are moving from speaker to speaker. So I basically have that whole sequence memorized to this day because of that.
Yeah,
we did the same thing, which is not that we were into audio equipment, but we had just installed surround sound.
Oh yeah,
it was the coolest scenes to watch.
It is.
And episode 2, when Jango Fett launches those bombs in the asteroid field.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Surround sound was the way to experience those.
Yeah. The seismic charges. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, generally speaking, the Star Wars movies, if you have a surround system and need to test it, just pick one of those and go. Like they will all have scenes in them that are great. I think in Empire, one of the best scenes is where it's raining on Dagobah, and because it goes from like inside to outside, and suddenly like you're in the rain. It's everywhere.
Yes, yes.
You have it set up right.
Yeah.
They did it. Awesome. So okay, and Battlefront was your other one?
No, not Battlefront.
No, not Battlefront. Sorry.
Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds is what it's called.
Battlegrounds.
So it was released between episode 1 and episode 2. Yeah.
Okay. So what faction do you play?
I play Wookiees.
Okay.
Yeah. So I play the Wookiees. I've been playing this game for so many years that when I boot up the game, I turn it on and I do myself versus 3 hard AI, and I fight 3 hard AI all allied against me at the same time, because that's the only way I can challenge myself on the game at this point. But the fun thing is, what you guys were saying about the UI earlier, like half of some of these games is just fighting the crappy UI, because like some of it's like so, it's like prior to sort of a more standardized system of laying out UIs. So everyone's kind of experimenting with what works. What was that?
You don't know what UI user interface is what that means for those of you who may not understand what we're talking about. The way the buttons are laid out and the way that the controller operates.
And like the hotkeys, like you can push a certain button and then a certain action will be performed. But because it's so early on, like nowadays, a lot of PC games have almost standardized inputs for those, but not so back in the day for those guys.
Why would they map that action to H? It makes no sense.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And some of them are like a lot of them are mapped to numbers that just don't have any actual. It's weird. Anyways, I'm trying not to rant about my favorite Star Wars game for the entire length of the game.
Okay, so that is also your favorite.
Oh, yes.
Because you still play it today. Okay.
Oh, I still play it today. It's a fantastic game. I'll hold it up to a lot of real-time strategy games. It's just great. Yeah.
Okay. And so have there been other Star Wars games like that game? That
Empire at War?
I was going to say.
Yeah, so Star Wars Empire at War.
Battlefront is similar, but it's totally different. You're like one of the troopers on the ground in a battle versus kind of the master hand controlling factions and stuff, which I really enjoyed Battlefront 1 and 2, the first ones.
Mm-hmm.
Empire at War and Galactic Battlegrounds. I never quite got into those as much, but Battlefront I really enjoyed. And I guess I appreciated being like one of the troopers on the ground versus kind of the master hand controlling everything.
Yeah, there's basically only 2 real-time strategy games for Star Wars. I haven't been able to find any others. Let me see here. Real-time Star Wars strategy.
I think you're right.
Live fact checking.
Like Battlefront would be the only comparable one, but even that's a little bit different.
Yeah, the only ones I was able to find is so they list they list Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds and all of its mods and expansions, and then they list Star Wars Empire at War and then an expansion for Star Wars Empire at War. So there's only, and then there's Star Wars Rebellion, which is I've never heard of this game before, but it looks to be
my favorite.
Very interesting.
Game, actually, Star Wars Rebellion. Yes.
Oh boy, I want to hear all about it in that case.
So it was what I would call it a limited real time strategy, because you had one of 2 choices. You were either playing the Empire or you were playing the Rebellion.
Okay.
And it was right post Yavin 4. And literally you're in the process of moving your base if you're the Rebellion. And then you have like 3 objectives that you've got, and you've got the whole galaxy to work with. And if you're the Empire, you start at Coruscant, and it's sort of an empire building / objective real-time strategy galactic wide operation. So it was kind of, for me, it was very much somewhat of a Star Wars flavored Masters of Orion. I don't know if you guys ever encountered those games, the 1 and 2, but those were sort of the 4X space simulators. And so they call Rebellion real time strategy. I don't think I would call it that. I would call it more closer to like a 3X, 4X game.
Okay.
But you are sort of, especially as the Empire, you are kind of building your empire. So you're going from system to system and capturing planets and then converting them over to your cause. And when you're the Rebellion, you're trying to convert them, and you have characters that you find along the way, which are characters from the movies. You start with a couple, like you start with Leia and Han and Chewie, but then you got to go find some, and you find people from the expanded universe. You can end up with like Dash Rendar, who's from one of my other favorite games.
Because of the Empire.
Yeah. And you find Lando Calrissian, you find, certain droids and as, the Empire, you'll find Boba Fett, or you'll recruit these people, and then you go send them on missions to do stuff. And some of it's, you're like, I'm sending Boba Fett to try to find Han Solo to capture him, and then you can play this game against your friends. And so somebody plays the Empire and somebody plays the Rebellion. And so I spent a lot of time doing that, a lot of time cursing my friends out. They, suddenly captured Han Solo at the wrong moment, or managed to get the Death Star in play and blew up a planet I really needed.
Yeah. That's cool. I wasn't even aware of this game. It seemed that it was one of those games that was like prior. So this would be prior to episode 1 in that case when it was released. Yeah.
This was
super cool. Yeah. I'm gonna have to find a way to play that somehow. It's on Steam.
It is PC, I'm assuming, right?
It was PC at the time.
It is on Steam.
Yeah, it is. Oh, yeah.
Oh, sick. 1998, February 28th. Very cool. All right, add it to my Steam wish list. Live gaming. No, just kidding. There will be no SUPN video game stream on Twitch, as entertaining as that would be. Let us know in the comments, though, if you want to see.
We did a session of D&D, but it's not D&D. I mean D&D for Star Wars, but I'm blanking on
which one. There's
I was going to say there's
3 different ones.
Dozen.
Thomas and Huro kind of created a scenario for us, and we played one on the podcast. This would have been about 2.5 years ago.
Oh, I remember listening to this episode. Yeah. I can't remember which system it was.
Thomas had the whole thing.
One of the D20 systems, or
it may have been the Star Wars port to 3.5, or basically using 3.5 rules with Star Wars.
Well, that was a great system. This is the wrong gaming podcast. We're going to talk about
can you hold that up? Yeah. So that's the 3. That's the 3.5 based system. I'm aware. Yeah. So I'm actually writing a campaign for the other Star Wars system that is a Fantasy Flight.
Nice.
Run by Fantasy Flight, that is.
So listeners, if you want to go listen to us play through what do you call that? It's D&D for Star Wars, but it's
a tabletop game,
role-playing game. That's what
RPG.
Yeah. So if you want to listen to that, go back and look in our archives. I can't remember what episode number it is, but it was a lot of fun to put together, and maybe we'll revisit that or video gaming in the future. Who knows? So
me and Patrick both fight each other in Star Wars Rebellion.
Yeah. Oh, I could sink so much time, so much of my life.
That's how it is, though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm the only one that hasn't jumped in with my favorite game yet.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, it should be pretty obvious if you know me at all, or if you know my name, Father Fett. But there was a certain game that came out around the time of episode 2 that's called Star Wars Bounty Hunter.
Oh yeah,
you play as Jango Fett from before episode 2, and it's the Legends expanded universe plot of how he was chosen to be the source for all the clones. So he encounters Count Dooku and gets sent on this mission to take down a Dark Jedi, and he has to overcome all of that in order to be the clone source. And it's a heck of a lot of fun. I mean, you can he meets up with Zam Wazell, and you kind of connect some of those dots. And so it's a third person shooter adventure. You can scan different people and aliens as you're going through your missions, and if they have a bounty on them, you can chase them down and collect on the bounty. And I mean, it's it totally
that's cool
fit for Jango Fett, and definitely. I mean, it was one of the games that I totally gravitated towards when I saw episode 2, and Jango Fett became my top favorite character of all time. And they re-released it in 2019 for the PS4, but then just last month they remastered it for PS5, and I can't remember if it's for Xbox or not, but it was remastered, so not just ported, but better improved graphics and everything. And it's on my list to play, but I just moved into my new parish, and so I clearly have not had time to be playing A lot of video games. I have played some video games, I will admit, but not that one. So I want to jump back to that one and play through it.
Does also appear to be on Steam as well.
Okay. The remaster or just the
remaster? Yes, I can't find the original.
The original is really hard to find. It was PlayStation 2, and then like they only remade it for the PS4.
Interesting.
It's really weird. Yeah. So when they remastered it for the modern consoles, I was very, very excited.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Very cool. I will have to check that one out too. That looks really interesting.
Now, just for our audience, since you can't see us, every time me or Father Fett mentions a video game that Ryan hasn't heard of, his eyes light up as if it was Christmas, and he starts searching on Steam.
I immediately go tab over to Steam, find the game, and add it to my Steam wish list.
The young Padawan listening to us. Old master.
Oh man!
These are the good games.
Well, the thing is like it's like so many of these old games are on Steam for like just pennies. And so I love it. It's like I'll buy these old Star Wars games and I'm like, woo!
There was one point, I don't know if they're doing it anymore, but when I got a bunch of them on Steam, they were like, it was like 15 games in one package.
Yes.
But I don't know if that's still a thing or not, but definitely tons of them are on Steam. And then they remastered or at least ported a ton of them to like the PlayStation, the Xbox, and the Nintendo Switch online platforms. So I mean, a lot of these, it doesn't matter if you have a PC or a console, you can download them and play them, and they're fantastic games and stand the test of time, I think.
Yeah. I think the one I do have a critique for my favorite game, Rebellion, which is like if you're playing the Rebellion and you get to the very end game of it and you like the final thing you have to do is take Coruscant. It's just like it's a 2-hour grind basically. If you click 3 buttons in a row, like you're just like because you're just sending you're sending spies down to blow up the shield generator so then you can eventually bomb the planet or send your troops in. And so it's just watching all of your spies get killed and setting up a stream of spies to go to your ships, and it's just that is the only critique. But everything up to that point, it's a fabulous game.
Yeah, I have a similar critique for Empire at War, because Empire at War is a fantastic game, but there's like a tipping point in the game usually where you finally assemble like a massive fleet of ship, like first ship combats, a really big fleet, and you get to the point where you're like, all right, I can just literally cruise this fleet through every single planet's like airspace and destroy the entire like aerial fleet of whatever faction I'm fighting against. But then you get to the ground combat, and the ground combat takes forever. And most of the time you're just sending a massive force of troops, and you click the auto resolve button, and then anyways.
I feel like a lot of real-time strategy, empire building kind of games end up in that spot. It's
maybe towards the end.
Genre. Yeah, you just get to you're like, I'm tired of this. This is the same thing over and over again. I'm just going to click the auto button. If hopefully there's an auto button for us old gamers. No such thing existed.
Let's see here. I don't remember when auto resolve started to become a thing. Because I remember, I know Galactic Battlegrounds doesn't have an auto button, but it's more scenario based.
I don't remember what game I encountered that had that option, but I remember crying tears of joy when I saw it and I clicked on it. I was like, oh, I don't have to do that anymore.
Oh.
All right, so flipping the script a little bit, how about we go to our least favorite Star Wars games? What do we want to warn our listenership about that's out there that maybe they shouldn't touch?
See, that might be a bit harsh. is probably, well, my least favorite is not going to be the least favorite for my brother, for example, because he loves these games and I don't. And I get the feeling, Patrick, you probably love these games and I don't. The Rogue Squadron series.
Okay.
So I think they came out originally Rogue Squadron for the Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
And then Rogue Leader, maybe for the GameCube. I think there was 2 or 3 in the series. And again, I'm not as into the flight simulator kind of flight games. Admittedly, it was cool to do the trench run, but I would hit the wall so many times and then just get frustrated, or even the Battle of Hoth was pretty cool to do. But then you'd go out on all these other side missions for the Rebellion, which fill out the story and the gameplay, but just not my cup of tea. But I wouldn't necessarily warn people against it. Like if that's your kind of game, they are really good, but just not my favorite games. And the other ones that I'm going to mention, and this is, I don't know if this is fair. It's definitely not a general critique of the post Disney games, but I haven't been able to get into very many of them post Disney, and all the newer stuff. So I tried, Squadrons, and again felt exactly the same way that I did with all the Rogue Squadron series. So I couldn't quite get into that, even though I love Rebels and I love Hera, and I was like, oh, Hera's in this game and I want to play it, and I just couldn't quite get into it. The Jedi games, the new ones, and I'm already blanking on the names of them. Jedi Survivor,
and Jedi. Oh gosh, what's it called? Outlaws is the new game, so that wasn't the one I was.
Yeah. Either way, the Jedi games I tried, and like initially it was cool, and then when I saw the tree of
Fallen Order. Fallen Order.
When I saw the tree of like the skill tree, it just overwhelmed me, and I was like, I don't even know what to do, and so I just kind of put it down. But to kind of temper that a little bit, I have downloaded Outlaws, and so far have been really enjoying Outlaws. And there's a lot of skill to that one, and I think Ryan might have an opinion there. But
I have a different opinion.
I have been enjoying that for what it's worth.
That's fair. I'll drop my least favorite Star Wars game. You can barely call this a Star Wars game, but there's a Star Wars game for Xbox right when they released the Kinect, and basically it's a dance game. It's called Star Wars Kinect, and it's just basically just dance, but with Star Wars characters.
Okay.
So don't play Star Wars Kinect for those of you who still have a Kinect-enabled Xbox.
I feel like you have Jabba in the background, and you can dance for Jabba.
You can. There's like the Han Solo dance. There's there's a lot of. I mean, they're very funny. They're entertaining. But it's not very fun. I am not a fan of EA's philosophy towards creating games in the modern era, because oftentimes they are filled with microtransactions, and they will essentially release a game that isn't entirely finished and then rely on future, not just microtransactions, but future content patches that cost money to fix aspects of the game. So that's more of a... What? Go ahead.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I think microtransactions on games nowadays are.
Yeah. So that's more of a principled just thing towards newer games released by EA, who has the rights to Star Wars. Outlaws, I think, falls into that category for me. I was not able to get into Fallen Order. So I loved and played through entirely Star Wars: The Force Unleashed 1 and 2. So I'm not opposed to the general like concept that Star Wars Fallen Order does. it is, maybe I'm just a different era of gamer that can't entirely get into the more cinematic aspects of some of the newer games that seem to have more of an emphasis on cinematography versus like bread and butter gameplay mechanics. So that may just be I'm a grizzled cane wielding gamer at this point instead of a young bright-eyed bushy-tailed gamer who's looking for the latest releases.
You were the chosen one.
I was not anymore. I've gone dark. I've reached my villain arc. So that's just me. Not a fan of the Fallen Order series. Not a fan of Outlaws. And goodness sakes, don't just play Star Wars Connect if you want to laugh at it, but don't play it because you think it's good. And then go ahead. Oh, and then I was going to say, I didn't like what EA did with the new Battlefront versus the older Battlefronts.
They started putting the loot boxes and stuff in those, right? I mean,
they basically made it unplayable unless you spent microtransaction money on it, which really is criminal. It really sucks. Yeah.
I was going to say,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I really actually do appreciate the cinematography of the new games and love that aspect of it. And I'm definitely an older gamer myself, but with Outlaws, at least so far, I have not encountered anything. Well, I think maybe in future missions there might be, you have to buy those, but so far I haven't had to buy anything other than the game for me to enjoy it. So I know some games it's like you have to, unless you want to just grind through a bunch of stuff, you have to like buy the loot boxes or the microtransactions, and thankfully that's not quite so front and center, at least in Outlaws.
Yeah, I've heard that's good about Outlaws. Outlaws was more, I heard a lot of people speaking about how the game was basically unfinished on release, and they had to, for some cases, they had to actually require all of their users to like download a patch that reset their progress because people got soft locked in the game and that sort of thing. So that may be just a unique situation.
Well, but, and that speaks to a larger problem. Halo had this problem too, where you released a game that's not actually ready to be released just to try.
What era of Halo?
Well, I'm thinking Halo Infinite. I mean, it took
that's fair. Yeah,
years to just get to the point where like this is what the game should have released at. And all the other games I thought were released. Well, the Master Chief Collection had some issues, but again, that's more of a larger issue of. I know for me personally, I'd rather wait an extra year or two to have a really good game. In fact, Nintendo I don't know if you're a Metroid Prime fan, but we've been waiting for Metroid Prime 4 for like 5. Like they restarted development 2 years after they initially started development, and only now, like 4 or 5 years later, did we finally get a teaser. And Nintendo's happy to just like wait and like we'll release it when it's ready, not push it and have all the issues. So at least when it comes to that kind of thing, I think Nintendo's got the right idea, and these other gaming platforms spend the time, spend the money, hire good people, and make the game right before you release it.
Yeah.
That and actually, I'll say that I missed probably a good 15 years of PC gaming content because of that. I got so fed up with it after playing 2 or 3 games that came out that were just they're not playable because of the bugs. They didn't work, and you were always waiting for patches. And in those days, it wasn't like you had Steam that just updated everything every time you logged in. You had to know that there were patches. You had to go search for them. And I just gave up. I was like, I'm moving on. I'm just gonna play whatever games my friends play. I and so I missed a lot of I missed Empire at War because of that, because that was in that time frame. And it's like it's really only been like the last 10 years that I've really come back to PC gaming. So if you want a way to drive people away, release a half-baked product.
Yeah.
So Patrick, what's your least favorite?
So you might find this funny, but it's actually Rogue Squadron.
I'm surprised that we agree on that one.
Yeah. And for me, it's not because it's necessarily a bad game, but it wasn't X-Wing. And what I really wanted was X-Wing on a console, and it wasn't that. It could be fun in its own right, but it did have a problem that some space sims have, where they give you, every sixth mission or show is just completely impossible, and you've got to play it through 47 times to get lucky before you can move on. And I had gotten to a point where I was old enough that I didn't want to put up with that stuff anymore. And so it's just like, nope, moving on. I'll go download X-Wing and play through that again if I want it. But it was a dashed my hope scenario. So if you enjoy Rogue Squadron, that's, I'm not saying you're a bad person. So we've covered a whole lot of games, but are there other ones we haven't talked about? We think
Lego Star Wars.
Okay, so let's start there.
Yeah,
because I've got a couple others that I want to talk about yet.
Okay, I am a big Lego Star Wars fan. I've played. So I didn't play the original. Well, let me think here. I may have actually played the original Lego Star Wars. Come to think of it. But I played the Lego Star Wars on the Wii. I think the Lego Star Wars on the Game Boy Advance. I think that was actually... that might have been the complete saga. It might not have been the actual original Lego Star Wars. I can't remember. I have my Game Boy Advance in the other room. I'll check it. But I played that. I have the Skywalker saga on my Switch. From Star Wars fans and non-Star Wars fans alike, I've always heard good things about Lego Star Wars, and I just think it's a fantastic gem in the Star Wars gaming world that I think a lot of people really like. So,
well, and if I can add, the humor in it is phenomenal. I mean, just like from even the fact that if they get hit by a blaster, they just fall apart because they're Legos.
The Yoda death sound is iconic.
The silliness and the goofiness, they really they dive into the fact that it's Lego and just have fun with it. And it is definitely a good game to play, especially for families. I mean, definitely.
I enjoy making family members angry when I play, because I'll just like walk around rebuilding stuff and then breaking it and then rebuilding it. And they're like, "Can we move on?" I'm like, "No, I'm having fun here."
Well, the best thing I found about Lego Star Wars is those Easter eggs all through, like especially the complete saga, the one that has 1 through 6 on it. Like all of the cantina, like little Easter egg things that you can build, and then you finally unlock Indiana Jones and all sorts of goofy stuff that I just think is fantastic. And I'm sure it all exists in the new Lego Star Wars, but I haven't been playing that one with the same level of vigor as I played the complete saga on the Wii. I think I might have actually 100%ed that game, come to think of it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I loved it growing up. I played it with my siblings. It was just in the right release time for me and my siblings to all love it at the same time. So we just played through that all day.
So you're saying you had a Wii growing up?
Yeah.
Okay. All right then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have a beard now.
My job is to make people feel old. As one of the resident youngins on the podcast.
A couple others that I want to throw out there. The part of the Dark Forces series. So there's 4 games in that series. Dark Forces 2, and then Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast is the third one. That is probably my favorite out of the group, because that's when you're Kyle Katarn and you get force powers. So it kind of, it's a game that starts off in first person, transitions to third person, because then you get a lightsaber and you can do different styles of lightsaber attack, whether it's quick and fast or kind of heavy handed, and that slows your swing, but it makes your lightsaber more damaging. And third person view, because you can like force jump, you can force heal, you can push, you can force lightning, even as the main character. There's not really a morality scale or anything, and that game was really cool. And then that one also had multiplayer. So I always remember me and my brother playing it, and we would play on the Death Star, and it was just a free for all battle, and you would go around and take each other out on the Death Star. And so definitely a good one there. Again, that one's been re-released on all the modern consoles. And then the fourth one is Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy. And that one was, but you're a different character. You're not Kyle anymore. And it didn't quite resonate as much with me. So it's good, but I think Jedi Outcast is the best out of that group. Some ones that I'm surprised nobody's mentioned yet, and so I will bring it up, is Knights of the Old Republic.
I was going to say KOTOR. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's fair.
I got it. We got it. Me and my brother both got it when it came out for the Xbox, and just, I mean, that one is an RPG style level up game, and I mean, and then the story and the plot of that just blew you away, because that was one of the first games where you sort of embody yourself in the character.
Yep.
And then I'm not going to spoil it, but it's cool where the story goes with your character and the plot twists and everything, and just but then it was so expansive. I mean, there was like multiple different worlds that you would spend hours on each world, and then you had side quests and the main quest and the battle against the Sith and the Sith army. And I mean, it envisions, or it's in my mind what I envision the Old Republic to be, is like Knights of the Republic is that.
I mean, I played Star Wars: The Old Republic growing up too. The MMO. And it relied a lot on the content of KOTOR. It basically takes the KOTOR world, expands it further to accommodate an MMO setting, and then builds on its story from there. So I hadn't mentioned it yet because like it wasn't. I just have other things that I really like, but yes, it's hard. It's like we've almost gone for an hour, and it's like you have to focus on which ones you talk about because there's so many of them.
Yeah. Well, even Knights of the Republic 2 was great, but that was also one that they sort of rushed it. And when you get to the finale in that one, it was sort of just a letdown because it was just all simple dialogue telling you where everybody like the confusion, like. But again, like the story and everything and was great, and I loved it. The other big one that I wanted to mention was the MetaQuest, so the VR, and Vader Immortal is technically. I'm not sure if it's technically considered a game or just like an experience, but I would throw it in the realm of game. I mean, you can't die in it, but you can control your character in VR, and you're basically sent to Mustafar in VR, and it is like the most realistic thing ever. I mean, to the point where like you're walking on like the Mustafar temple, and you can look over the edge and look down, and you feel like you're hundreds of stories above, and throughout the three parts, you get a lightsaber. You can block blaster bolts. You can use the Force and pull blasters from the stormtroopers and then throw the blaster back at him or fire the blasters back at him. I mean, it is the most realistic thing that I've ever encountered when it comes to immersive gameplay.
That's cool.
So, and like I said, you can't really die because you're just following a story. But there is a game called Tales from Galaxy's Edge that is also on the MetaQuest. And that's also VR. And that one, you do have a health bar, and you can die because you're on a mission, and that one's meant to be a game. But same principles. But for that one, you're on Batu, and I forget what the plot is. But I mean, you've got your blasters and your explosives and whatnot, and And again, like the VR thing is, if you've never tried it, it is way better than you ever think it is possible. I've been harping on that with Dom and Bat on the Secrets of Technology podcast, because we're all into the VR stuff, but it is truly phenomenal. And not the Apple one, the Meta Quest, which is at least somewhat more in my price range, and the Apple stuff doesn't have these games. So, and in fact, there's a port if you buy now Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast, and Jedi Academy, and have it on your computer, you can actually port that into the Meta Quest, and there's a independent group that's converted it to VR, and that actually is really cool too. So, Team Beef, I think, is the name of the group. It's really cool. Pat
really cool.
Sent that to me over Christmas, and I tried it, and playing Jedi Outcast as your VR in the person of Kyle Katarn is really cool.
No,
so
really
those are a few others that I wanted to make sure I got out there. That's there's still others on my list, but I think those are the main ones.
Yeah. I think for me, the two I haven't, and we talked a little bit about one of them, and that's TIE Fighter. And it is similar to X-Wing as a space sim, but it takes away a lot of the protective shell in that you don't have shields when you're in the TIE Fighter. But what I loved about TIE Fighter was the story integration in that game. X-Wing had a story, but it was very linear. TIE Fighter, you could end up going a lot of different directions with it, and there was the Thrawn integration and the move into like getting to the TIE Defender, depending on how secret and how far along you were within the hand of the Emperor stuff, and how much of your tattoo was filled out on your left arm. Like it got really detailed in a lot of different ways. Like there are these characters showing up on the bridge that you could suddenly talk to that weren't there before because you had done this certain thing in the mission. Like you'd captured the escape pod instead of blowing it up, and suddenly you got somebody's attention. And so the story elements really set TIE Fighter apart from X-Wing, even though I enjoyed the gameplay on X-Wing a little bit more. So if you're looking for a kind of a space sim that has a lot of story to it, I would highly recommend TIE Fighter. And the other one is Shadows of the Empire. That game, that game is what got me reading the books. That's what introduced me to the expanded universe books. Because the whole concept that there was this something beyond just the movies.
Yeah.
And at the time it was just like the 3 movies. Like we didn't even have, 6 movies and 7 TV shows and whatever it is now, we just had the 3 and the thought process that there was stuff that happened in between these, that this world was like, it was already expansive just in those 3 movies, but it was even more expansive than that. And not only that, Shadows of the Empire was just a lot of fun to play. Running around, completing missions, fighting the bounty hunters as you got bigger and badder, and all the way up to Boba Fett and as Dash Rendar. And I love, to this day, I love the Millennium Falcon. Don't get me wrong, but I love his ship. It is kind of like a knockoff Millennium Falcon, but in a lot of ways, it's a lot more fun, in my opinion. So I again, for me, it's a lot of the story integration. And I think the Old Republic game, the MMO, was a lot of fun for the same reasons.
Yeah.
And taking my Jedi as dark side as I possibly could, and my Sith as light side as I possibly could, and seeing the storylines play out. And it's funny to me, like it hurts when 2014 came around and they legend everything. It hurt for all the books I'd read. But it honestly hurt a little more for some of the games. It was like, you wiped all that out? Like, there was so much there. It's so much like I had experienced, not just read in a book and thought in my imagination, but I had like fought through this. And now it's just, part of Legends, and maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. So.
Yeah.
But any others we want to throw in?
Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. Yeah.
Okay.
Talking about Legends, that game when it came out, everyone said this isn't canon because it wasn't. But now, basically, ironically enough, they've kind of reintegrated a lot of the story of Starkiller into other characters over the course of Star Wars lore. Yeah, but that game is so over the top. It's fantastic. That was the oh gosh. That was Fallen Order and Survivor, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor before Fallen Order and Survivor. A really fun game.
Yeah, the only other ones that I would throw out there is I really loved Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, like the game based on the movie for PS1.
Okay. I haven't thought about that thing in a while.
They did that for, I think, Episode 1, 2, and 3, like the game based on the movie. So, in fact, I played through Episode 3 before I saw it in the theaters. So that was back in the day. They released the novel like a week before it hit theaters, which is not a good idea anymore.
Yeah.
And I think the game either released early or I just wasn't able to go right away. So like I picked up the game before I was able to go to theaters, and
that's funny.
So, and if I remember right, Episode 3 actually had like movie scenes in the game, because it was just the game version of the movie. But Episode 1 was actually a really fun game with the PS1 blocky graphics and everything. So, yeah, I think that's kind of. I also really enjoyed Jedi Starfighter. That was a game.
Yeah.
Episode, 1 and 2. Because it led up to the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big Episode 2 fan, so pretty much any game that came out around that time, I was all on board for.
Okay.
I've modded. We could just start talking about mods. No, I subscribe to a couple mods for Empire at War that turns all of the ship skins into Clone Wars era stuff. So it turns it into Republic versus Separatist.
Nice.
There are several really good mods for Empire at War that have been labor of love at this point. That I would go to bat for them. That they really are worth playing through if you're a real-time strategy fan, because they capture the feeling of like sending in a whole bunch of giant, pizza slice star cruisers over a battlefield into a space station and being like, all right, you may fire when ready. It's very, very fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think given enough time, we would probably go on for possibly several hours. But
yes,
that's a taste of it for now.
And we'd quit talking and we just like boot up one of these games and play.
Yeah, just start playing.
Go over to Twitch. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. we could. If the viewers want it, an SQPN streams series where we stream like games of various shows. Games of various shows. That's not what I mean. Games that immediately relate to the content of some of the various shows.
Oh yeah,
that'd be cool.
There's a lot of tie-in stuff. Okay, all right. So yeah, head over to the Discord.
Shadow of Mordor. You could stream that.
Yeah.
It'd be solo, but yeah.
All right, so maybe we will have another one of these and we can talk some more games, and maybe we'll have one of these where we broach into the field of possibly RPGs and board games, because there's a lot of Star Wars content in those arenas as well. So, but for now, that's it for this episode of The Secrets of Star Wars, and we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons, including Henry S., Joby W., Meg S., Adam G., and Raymond K. Their generous donations help us to create The Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows here at StarQuest, and you can join them at sqpn.com/give. And now we'd like to hear from you, our listeners. What are your thoughts on Star Wars video games? Do you have a favorite or two you'd like to share with us? Or maybe you want to denounce us as heretics and say our choices are terrible? You can let us know by sending us an email at starwars@sqpn.com, on our social media pages, or by leaving a comment on our channel on the StarQuest Discord server, which you can find at sqpn.com/Discord. Until next time... Oh, Father Fett, thank you for joining me for this episode of Secrets of Star Wars.
It was my absolute pleasure. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And thank you, Ryan, the pod racer.
Oh, thank you. I feel like I have a bunch of games now to start downloading and playing and buying.
And we know why you're called the pod racer.
Yes, there you go. Lore
Secrets
unlocked.
out. Hooray. You get that little badge on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, I'm Patrick Mason. Thank you all for listening to the Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Join a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go on pilgrimage to the mysterious shrines and sites of Italy in the Jubilee year 2025 with Jimmy Aiken and me, Dom Bettinelli. Go with us on a 12-day, all-inclusive tour that gives you incredible access to Jimmy's insights in Rome, Assisi, Orvieto, Monte Cassino, San Giovanni Rotondo, the Grotto of St. Michael, and more. We're also planning special activities like recording on location for future episodes of Mysterious World and an in-person Weird Questions episode just for pilgrims. Space is limited and filling up, so be sure to find out more. Visit mysterious.fm/Italy 2025 to reserve your spot today. That's mysterious.fm/Italy 2025.